Okay, so take a look at my animation that's in front of you and tell me what's wrong with this animation. There's something very obvious. Yes?
The tree's on the road.
The tree's on the road. Well, you know what? If you look at the, you're right. But if you look at the frame, remember I put a frame around my stage? Yeah. The tree's not going to look like in the road when I do it, when I build the animation. Yes? Looks like he's in the air. Well, that happens when you're running. You know, building a shadow with this, by the way, you can do, but it would be very difficult. You could just copy your inverse kinematics layer and then make a whole new bunch of symbols and make them black, and it would be really difficult. We're not going to worry about shadows for this, unless we really get far into this, but I don't think so. Now, there's something else that's really wrong with this. Well, okay, his hands are blocks. Yes, we don't have details. Our guy is naked. He's naked. He has no clothes. And he's sunburned. He's naked and sunburned, which makes sense. Okay, right? No. But what I want us to do is I want us to get some more details for our characters. Okay, I want us to start refining the body a little bit more. Now, here's the thing. You really can't change the shape too much. You should have rounded the ends of the body. You don't want to be changing too much as far as that's concerned. We can change his hand from blocks to regular hands, make them fists, okay, and draw that. And maybe we'll attempt that today. But what we're going to do is we're going to give him clothes. That's going to be my major thing today. We're going to give him clothes. I'm going to just show you how you can go about doing that. And then also, you know, I'm going to show you how you can copy and paste from one symbol to the next. Now, the danger to copying and pasting, obviously, is the left leg, let's say, would look exactly the same as the right leg, and we don't want that, usually. So maybe I won't show you how to copy and paste. You can figure it out on your own. We'll see how far I get with the demo, okay? I also don't want this to take the entire period, so my goal is to get it done pretty quickly. So let's give this guy some jeans, okay? And we'll go from there. So I'm going to find the layer with my character on it, and I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to double-click into the symbol for the runner, and now we've got our runner, and you can see the animation that we've built here. Okay, that's pretty cool. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep him right at that pose. And here's one of the things that I like about Flash. When you double-click into the symbol, and this is, I mean, believe it or not, this is brilliant. When I double-click into the symbol and edit the symbol, notice it stays in the same position as it was put in the previous frame. If I go back out and I move him forward, and then I go and double-click on the same symbol, it moves, okay? If, however, you go to the library and you find that symbol, okay, and you double-click on it, now notice you can't see your animation anymore, and it's just straight up and down. This actually gives you some real nice options as to how to edit symbols. Sometimes it's easier to edit them like this when they're just straight up and down because you don't have to worry about strange angles and extra information. But in this case, and in most cases, you're going to want to edit them so you can see the rest of the body, you can see the rest of the character, so you can make your designs make sense. The other thing that we're going to do here is, in order to not mess everything up, we're not going to replace this body that we've got started. We're not going to replace the objects that are in the limbs already. We're going to paint over top of them. And there's a good reason for that, and that might be that you actually might want some skin color somewhere, or maybe you want his ankles to show every once in a while, or, you know, there's 1,000 things you could do with it. So we're not going to just replace this. That would also be dangerous because then if you delete this, it would be really easy to kind of mess up where things go, too. So this is going to be our base object. We're not going to get rid of it. Now I can go and change you know, hit the color of his ankle or whatever. And actually what I do want to do is I kind of want to get rid of the line at the bottom of the ankle here, because I didn't do that. And this is a good instance of where it's really hard for me. See, if I select it like this, you see how it gets too much. this is actually a perfect instance of where it's easier for me to double click on the left shin and take off the bottom half like that. So then I do my little trick of highlighting the outline, and I get the interior as well. Then I deselect the interior, hit the delete key, and now let's see what that looks like. Too much. So it's almost exactly the same. So we'll just go a little less. Whoops. Delete. See what that looks like. That's better. It's never going to be perfect, right? We knew that. So now let's go in and we can start to adjust what's going to happen with the leg inside the symbol. So go inside the symbol, then inside the next symbol. Here we go. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go up to my layers here, and I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to call it my base layer or skin layer or whatever you want to call it, okay? And then I'm going to lock it. Bam. Never going to touch it again, pretty much. Anything else that I do is going to be added on top of it in a new layer. And this is one of the things that's really, really, really cool about Flash, is that each symbol is almost like a self-contained little project. Each symbol can have animations inside it. Each symbol can have multiple layers inside it. I mean, your animation can get incredibly complicated because of how symbols interact with each other and how you can have multiple layers, multiple animations. So all I'm going to do now is make another layer, and we're going to call this socks. Whoops. Socks. There we go, not six. So then I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to start looking at how do I want to do the socks. And this is where some of the tools that we haven't really played with much will be coming in very handy. I'm just going to take the brush tool. And the brush tool is neat because it paints shapes. So I'm going to turn off the stroke. Okay, turn that off. And then I'm going to just give myself, he's going to have white socks. And then you literally get a brush shape. Now, you can change the size of the brush and everything. That will appear over here if you give it room. So I need to make this a little smaller, and then all of a sudden you'll see these will pop up. And you have a whole bunch of controls here. You have the brush size here. You've got the brush shape here. You've got a button for using pressure to give you transparency. So if you were to use one of the tablets that we have, I do have 8 tablets. You can try drawing with those, and if you press harder, it gets darker with that button. And you can also use the tilt of it to change the way things look. I don't think we really need to worry about that. That stuff, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to paint with the mouse here, but I am going to get myself a little bit of a bigger brush. Now let me say one thing in warning about using the brush tool in Flash. In Photoshop, the brush tool went by pixel size, right? It was 200 pixels, 100 pixels, whatever. When you zoomed in, what happened to the brush, visually speaking? It got bigger, right? And it got bigger appropriate to the amount that you zoomed in. In other words, it stayed 100 pixels no matter what you did. So if you zoomed in, the brush looked like it was bigger. In actuality, the brush didn't get bigger. It actually stayed the same size. Now in Flash, that doesn't stay true. The brush size stays the same based on your screen. So if I zoom in, see how big my brush is? If I then zoom, will you stop? If I go and zoom in, look, see I made a mark with it. Now I make a mark again. Same brush size. I haven't changed. I just zoomed in. Now the brush is smaller. It drives me insane. I hate this about Flash, that the brush size does not change. Well, that it does change when you zoom in, that the brush size gets smaller. Drives me nuts. Anyway, so let's just draw some socks on him so we get a little bit bigger brush. And the way I like to do it, and this is really, I think this really works out well, is, oh, now it's thinking. We're gonna get rid of this. Tomorrow I'm gonna show you the demo on how to get rid of that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw an outline of socks. Okay. Once I've drawn the outline and I've closed the object, now I can go to my paint bucket and I can just fill it. Ah, that's rather nice, isn't it? Okay, that works out well. So now I've got that. I'm going to lock that layer. Now I'm going to make another layer, and we'll call these jeans. Now I'll get myself a nice blue color that I like for jeans. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with a brush, and I'm going to start with an outline. Now, one of the neat things that happens, you see how it's kind of shaky and stuff like that, okay? One of the cool things that Flash does is it smooths out your motions. This is why this is going to work. So watch what happens when I let go. Did you see how it smoothed it out for me? That was pretty cool.
You adjust the smoothing.
And you, thank you. I was just about to do that. You can adjust the smoothing. You can make it smooth more or less. So let's just take a look at that. How do I do that? Well, that's actually pretty easy. Oops, I didn't really want to zoom out. When you are on the brush tool and you go to the properties tray, there's the smoothing right there. See that? And it usually is set for 50. I actually like it a little lower. It will make your lines thinner too sometimes. So let me take the smoothing. Let's take the smoothing up really high, and then I'll just make a mark over here. You see how it gets thinner in certain places and thicker in certain places. So I like to have it about in the middle, and actually sometimes for me a little lower. You know, but there are some controls here that you can do that are real nice and you can play with. But the smoothing is right there. Okay, so very good question, and right off the bat too. So let me get my eraser tool here and let me erase this. I also hate the eraser tool, how it does that. It looks like it's erasing everything. I remember the first time I did that, I panicked. But it's not. It just drives me insane. Why does it do that? Anyway, so now I'm going to go do the same thing, take my paint bucket, I'm going to fill it, and we've got the start to some jeans. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my layer here because I'm trying to think ahead. I want to think ahead. I'm going to double click, I'm going to rename this base color because we want to have depth in our animation. And what major issue is my jeans missing right now? Texture, wrinkles, value changes, okay? Does it look round? No. No. You know, and it's a cartoon. I mean, it's an animation, so we don't have to get photorealistic here. But at the same time, it would be nice, right, to kind of have some values. So there's a couple of things that you can do. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you now how to use gradients. Gradients are really cool. Remember the gradient tool in Photoshop, okay? What did it do? Do you remember? It went from what to what? Huh? Yeah, one color to another. Could have been dark to light. It can be whatever. And it blends nicely, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a gradient to this. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to just highlight the whole leg. Okay? And now I'm going to give it a gradient. So I'm just going to do a linear gradient. Nice, okay? And you'll notice it goes from black to white. I lose my blue color. Oh well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have it go black to white, hold the Option key down, and drag the black over to the other side. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, double click again, get another one. Now you can see I'm going from black to white to black again. Now I'm going to actually change my colors to the blue. So let me double click and get that blue back. I kind of like that blue right there. And now what I can do is if you look here, you can see there's a numerical value for the color. That's the word I'm looking for. And you can see really it's easy. 0 red, 0 green, 153 blue. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to take my blue up until it's just like a darker shade of blue, not black. 68. Let's see how that looks on the, yeah, that's that, maybe even a little brighter. There we go. Actually, the back of the leg may be a little darker, and then the front of the leg, we do the same thing. That's not too shabby. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It's giving us a little bit of depth. It makes it look a little rounder. These numbers, by the way, you're going to want to memorize them. Write them down on a piece of paper because you're going to want to make them match up with the other object. Now, there's going to be a major problem that's going to happen with this if you're not careful, as you're going to see in a little bit. What do you think that problem might be? Anybody? I didn't think about it until just now. What's that? Yeah, as it rotates, you're going to see that seam on the because the color's not going to match up with the upper leg. So maybe what we should do is probably not do as much of this, the linear gradient, as much as I was thinking. You can play with it. Let's put it that way. Let's see how it looks. But let's continue on with this. So now I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to call this wrinkles. And here I'm just going to use the brush. I'm going to get a solid color. I'm going to go with a slightly different, slightly darker color blue. Whoops. Man, I hate it when it doesn't give me the hand. And this is where I can, boy, it needs... Well, apparently I can't make the properties tray smaller, but I can make it smaller when it's on library. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to get a slightly bigger brush here. And now I'm just going to kind of draw in over top of everything. I'm going to start drawing in some deeper colors. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get, well, yeah. So let's go even deeper like there. And just kind of get some wrinkles in there. And you can just make several passes. And the other thing is you can kind of make them less opaque too. You can change the opacity of them. So I'm going to just kind of make a little wrinkle here like this. And another one here like that. And then maybe one coming up off the front here like this. Okay. And then what I can do is I can take the opacity of these by selecting them with the arrow tool. Oops. Lock the base color. Go to my properties tray. Oh no, I can do it over here. So I go over to colors and I take my alpha down. So let's see what 60% looks like. That's not bad. Go down even more. Now that's looking a little bit better. So you can start seeing some wrinkles and stuff like that. So now the idea is I want to continue the same thing up on the thigh. So let's go back up here. We'll double click. And I can do the same thing. Let's just make, I'm not going to do all the wrinkles and stuff like that. Let's make a base jeans layer and see how it looks with our gradient and see if what I'm afraid is going to happen is going to happen. It's going to happen, okay? So here, so we call this skin layer. So be consistent. Make sure you do everything the same way so that, you know, it's easier to, I can't spell. And be consistent so that everything's the same, so it's easier for you to figure out, you know, what happens when there are problems. Now, if I start painting right now, notice it kind of goes like grayish. My alpha is still down. I'm going to put it back up. So I'm just going to follow the outline of the guy's thigh here. And then I can dump. Oh no. Oh, it's thinking. Again. There. So now I can dump that in. And let's go to our linear gradient.
Does it matter that you used a different blue for the top leg?
It won't, because now here's something cool about Flash. Look at this. When I go to my linear gradient, it remembers the last one. But yeah, normally that would be a problem. But you can always highlight it. You can always highlight it and then just get the number again. And so that's why I say it's important for you to write it down, the numbers that you're using on a scrap piece of paper, so that you know that the blue you're using is 153 and 0 green and 0 red. You know, so get your primary colors down. Don't worry about the HSB numbers. Use the RGB numbers, just because the HSB numbers I haven't taught you anything about. That's hue, saturation, and brightness is what those stand for. But let's just use red, green, and blue. Okay, that's just easier. So now, if I get out of the symbol here, it looks really good when his leg is straight, doesn't it? But then as he starts to run, yeah, not so good. See, the highlights don't match up. So we could play with it. You could even maybe use a radial gradient instead of a linear gradient. But I think what's probably going to be the best is actually just to hand color it and use the alpha like I did here with the wrinkles. Do the same thing with the edges, and just be you know, careful. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So let's go back here. I like that start, and let me click on these, and then I'm just going to create a solid color. So I'm just go back to my base color. I'm going to unlock it, select all, and I'm going to get rid of my linear gradient and go to a solid color. 153 blue. Get out of that symbol, go to my jeans symbol, and get rid of my gradient and do the same thing. And now what you'll see is, since the colors match, you won't see any of those problems, okay? And it's going to start looking pretty good, okay? Now, let's get to his torso, because I want to do one thing really quickly with his torso, and then I'll let you guys get to work. If I go and I double-click on his torso, one of the things that I've seen many students do is they just give him a shirt, and the shirt goes all the way down to his butt. Well, that doesn't look right, right? The jeans, you need to give him a belt and a waist. Okay, if you're gonna, so that's something that's kind of is rather important, and I just want to highlight that and make that, you know, a specific thing. The other thing is when you go into the symbol, one of the things that I don't like, but yet I kind of like, and I understand why I do that, is the symbol always pops up on top. So even though this leg was over top of it, now it looks like it's underneath. Don't freak out. It's still going to be on top of it in the arrangement. It does that when you edit a symbol, if you haven't figured that out already. Sometimes that makes it a little hard to see stuff, though, right? Okay, so pay attention. And don't forget, do details like pockets, belts, belt buckles, wrinkles, little things like that, because you'll thank me when you're done. Because those little things they sell the animation, they really do. So I'm going to go jeans, base color, okay? Now I'm just going to take my brush here, and I'm just going to give him, no, that's too straight. Like that. Paint bucket, boom, okay. And then you want to take a look and see that you don't miss anything. So see how I missed that right there. And then I can just keep adding details. So we'll go up, and I could make wrinkles, but I'll ignore those for the time being, and I'll start a belt, okay. Get a different color. I don't probably want to go pure black. Probably want to go not quite pure black. That will allow me to do shadows or something if I wanted to. So I'm going to go to my brush tool again. And hand drawing stuff is a lot of fun, because you know what it really does is it kind of adds a nicer feel to the animation, because it kind of gives it an artist touch. Now let's see if something's there we go, so made that. Now if the paint bucket doesn't work, it means you didn't close the outline correctly. Okay, so that means there's gaps. And there may not even be gaps visually, but then if you use the white arrow tool and click on your object, there should be one continuous shape. If the line just ends, that means you've got two separate shapes and the paint bucket won't work. Okay? So there I've got a belt, and then I can do a shirt, and the belt would stay on top. You know, you have to adjust the layers and the order of the layers to make it. But as you see here, okay, now see I've got a big problem. And this is what I was talking about. Because the thigh layer was underneath the torso layer, I couldn't tell. I really need to bring my belt up a little higher. So you can see how that's going to look rather awkward. Now part of it also may be, you know what, I go back in and I reshape the thigh a little bit better. Okay? You have to kind of figure out what you can do. Be very careful with reshaping the thighs or the elbows or whatever, because you can also really mess up your animation. And since a lot of you have already basically finished the running animation, you want to be very careful you don't alter the way the joints fit together, because theoretically you've tested those and they work perfectly. But here in the torso, that's not going to be that big of a difference. So I can just literally go into the thigh here. Okay, and I'm going to use the eraser tool to kind of erase what might not work really well. Now there's going to be a problem associated with this, isn't there? I still have the red that I need to take care of. So then I'll just turn off my... No, I'll just flip-flop the layers for the moment. Take the white arrow tool, and I'm just going to alter the shape so that it matches or fits underneath the jeans here. See? Problem solving. That's really what it's all about. There. Now let's go back out in the symbol. Still is not perfect, okay, but it's a lot better. Okay? And it will continue to get better as I keep working on it more and more and more. Obviously, I don't want to spend too much time on the demo. Are there any questions about this? So your goal now is to make sure that your character is not naked. Plain and simple.